Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, and I have to look over here and grab my iPad to see what day it is. Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, January the 29th, 2021. It is currently 9:12 a.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from Victory Baptist Church, located right here in Ovalo, Texas. And I want to begin this episode by reading from Ephesians chapter 6. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Let me read the scripture again. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. Now, I know that most of the people who are listening to this, you already know this verse. There's a very good chance you already have it memorized. But I want you to hear the verse again. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness and high places. You know what? I think we should read it one more time. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. If there was ever a verse that is absolutely critical for Christians to not only know right now, but I think to have memorized and to have posted pretty much everywhere, on your refrigerator, your mirror, maybe in your car. You need it posted everywhere because you need to be reminded every single day that yes, we are in a battle. Yes, we are in a war, but our battle and our war is not against flesh and blood. All right, it's against principalities, it's against powers, it's against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. We are in a spiritual war, fighting a spiritual battle against a spiritual opponent. And I think so much of our focus has been on fighting flesh and blood. It's been trying to fight a spiritual war through fleshly means, by turning to the world of politics, by becoming preoccupied with the world of politics, looking for political solutions. So even though many Christians feel like, yes, we're in a battle, we're in a war, I think they begin to fight a fleshly battle using fleshly strategies, fleshly weapons, trying to find, trying to make an alliance with fleshly, allies in order to try to accomplish what Christians feel they need to accomplish, to try to win the battle. But the battle is spiritual. So we need to be spiritually minded. We need spiritual weapons. We need a spiritual strategy. And if we do not have that, then, we're going to find ourselves with where we're going to experience spiritual defeat. I cannot stress this enough. We have to wake up as Christians, and I cannot speak for Christians around the world, but Christians here in the United States of America need to wake up, because I think what we have witnessed over the past 4, 5, 6 years has been a spiritual tragedy. And I know that sounds like I'm using exaggerated language. I know that sounds like hyperbole, but I truly mean it with everything inside of me. We have experienced spiritual defeat because we abandoned the spiritual battle. And even though we thought we were fighting a spiritual battle, we looked to the flesh. We begin to engage in fleshly battles, looking for fleshly solutions, and we ended up with fleshly results. And the church has to wake up and repent and get our focus back where it needs to be, on Scripture, on focusing on things of God, picking up spiritual armor, using the sword, which is the Word of God. We need to get back to that way of thinking. And if we don't, well, things are not going to get any better. Things will only get worse and worse and worse and worse. And we really, honestly, have to wake up. And I don't know what, I know there's, I don't know what else to say anymore. I feel like I've been saying the same thing for years, but we've reached a critical point in church history here in the United States of America. I think many, I honestly believe this. I believe many churches have so abandoned the spiritual mindset that they're now churches in name, but they're not churches in the sense that they are fighting a spiritual war. They've become, they're called a church, but they've really become just an organization in order to try to change the world through a cultural war, through a political war. And even though they're called a church, they really have abandoned the things of God. And I don't want to say that lightly, but I believe it's the case. I believe you look at some churches, you're like, okay, they've left biblical Christianity, and they have the name church on their building, but if you walk in there, it's a fleshly mindset trying to fight the what they believe is the demise of the world around us. They see a spiritual problem, but their solution is completely contrary to what it should be. And we really have to wake up. And I don't even know how many times I can say that. We have to wake up. 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 Now, and for my, how can I say this? From my perspective, then if I'm going to tell everyone that we have to wake up, then I've got to do something that I hope will wake people up. And so what I'm trying to do is turn our attention back to that classic work on spiritual warfare, The Christian in Complete Armor. I'm trying to get our attention back to the spiritual war by using this classic book. And we've been working through it. We did an introduction. We did some background. And we've been working through the book. It's going to be a slow process. And again, I've still not determined if I'm just going to like read through the entire book, and each episode take a little section of the book and just read it. I'm not trying to do maybe a typical teaching through a book where I'm saying, okay, these 3 chapters talk about this, and here are the key points, like doing the Cliff Notes version. I think I'm going to just kind of read through it and not worry about how fast we go through it, not worried about trying to accomplish this in 6 months or 3 months, not worrying about trying to accomplish this in even a year. Just at different times, pick up the book and just start from where we left off. And just hopefully by looking at this book, it gets us, it just keeps, maybe this series will be a continual reminder of what we are to be doing and how we are to be doing it, that we are involved in a spiritual war and we are to be engaging the spiritual war in a spiritual way. Maybe this series will just be a constant reminder that every time you're like, oh, he did another reading from The Christian in Complete Armor. Let me check that out. Okay, well, he's reminding me of the same thing. It's just going to be a reminder over and over and over again. But maybe we need that reminder more than we've ever needed it. That's the way I think that's the way I'm going to approach this. And of course, you can always let me know your thoughts. You can give me your suggestions. You can give me your ideas by emailing me at newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com. Now, I also want to just remind you of a feature that is available to you. All right. I want to remind you of a feature that is available to you. And you can use this anytime I'm live on the air, not just for the discussions about the Christian in Complete Armor, but no matter what I'm on the air discussing, I want to just make this tool available to you. If you are listening to us live via the Spreaker app, on the Spreaker app, if you'll look closely underneath the title of the episode, it'll say Theology Central. You'll see these icons, and one of those icons is a little chat icon. If you just tap on that chat icon, while I'm live on the air, you can send a comment, question. You can send anything you want. It will show up immediately right here on the screen that I'm looking at here to my left. And I will try to respond to your question, maybe read your comment, and it just gives you a chance to communicate with me as we're working through the book and as we are discussing it. All right. So just make good use of that. Now, if you've got some, you want to say something mean and cruel and make some kind of threat, I mean, I guess you're free to do that. I'm probably going to just ignore you and just move on with the teaching. But if you want to have a meaningful dialogue, that's a good way to do so. You can communicate with me while I'm live on the air. Again, using the Spreaker app, just look for the little chat icon when I'm live on the air, and you'll know because it'll have it'll be red and it'll say live. That lets you know when the broadcast is live. And you can just, chat with me and send me your thoughts and comments. All right. So we're going to try to make better use of that tool. All right. Now we got that all out of the way. All right. I think that's a good place to start. Let's return back to the Christian in complete armor. Let's do that. All right. The Christian in complete armor. And we're still in chapter 1. I've got the Kindle version. All right. And remember, I'm just going to give a kind of a brief summary to get us to where we are. Basically, we've been told this, and I'll just read it from Ephesians chapter 6. Basically, we have been told this. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. We have been challenged that as Christians, we need strength. As Christians, we need courage. As Christians, we have to have strength and courage and be ready to stand because we are engaged in a spiritual war, and we need this strength and we need this courage to be able to stand and to be able to fight. Now, the book Christian in Complete Armor did not really spend a lot of time explaining exactly how we get this strength and how we are strong. We talked a little bit about that in my own discussion and in my own comments. And you can go back and listen to that. But that's the main focus that we've been given so far, is that we need to be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might, because we are facing, obviously, some very difficult things, and we will continue to face many difficult things. Christians have always faced many difficult things because we are engaged in a spiritual war. That spiritual war, and listen, this is very important. This is very important. And this may be the most important point I'm going to make in this episode. We are engaged in a spiritual war, even when the circumstances around us appear to be good. Everything seems to be wonderful. Everything seems to be great. There seems to be peace all around us. There doesn't seem to be any conflict. The culture around you seems to be very friendly to Christianity. Everything seems to be going. The society around you appears to be very moral and upright and godly. Even then, you're still engaged in a spiritual war. Sometimes as Christians, we only think we're in a spiritual war when things are in the culture go really bad. Then all of a sudden, we're involved in a spiritual war. You're always involved in a spiritual war. No matter what's going on in the culture, no matter what's going on in your life, if you are a Christian, you are involved in a spiritual battle. And you could talk, we're in a fight against the flesh, we're in a fight against the world, we're in a fight against the devil. We could talk about all the different elements of the spiritual war, but you are in a spiritual war no matter what is going on in society. It's like if everything's going great in society, then Christians are like, okay, everything is almost like the war was called off. And then when everything goes bad in the news and it's like, oh, look at what's happening in the world. Oh, the spiritual war is getting really bad. I think we're looking to the wrong. I think we're looking to the wrong thing. The spiritual war is a reality, irregardless of what's going on the news, irregardless of what's going on outside of your window. There is a spiritual war that is happening 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It never takes a break. There's never a peace treaty signed or let's stop, let's pause the war for a few moments. And no, it does not work that way. And I think we need to have that mindset, because I think it's almost like, hey, this is the way, again, some Christians think. If we gain these 4 political victories, then somehow we've won the spiritual war. No, it never stops. Okay. So far in the book, William Gurnall has really stressed the fact that we need the strength, We need this courage because of the things that we are facing. And then he says this, and I'm just going to pick back up. For further proof of this point, for further proof that we need this strength, we need this courage, we've got to be willing to stand, is we need to consider a few pieces of services that every Christian is to engage in. And the first service that every Christian is to engage in is to proclaim and prosecute an irreconcilable war against his bosom sins. The first place this war begins is against your bosom sins, those sins that you are fond of, that you have an affection for, that you are close to, those sins that just stay very close and dear to you. Now, you would never tell everyone that the sin is dear to you, but it is. It is. You have kind of an affection for it. That's where the spiritual war begins, against our own individual sins, right? So that's the first thing he talked about. We discussed that in the last episode. So the Christian is to proclaim and prosecute an irreconcilable war against his bosom sins. Those are the sins which have lain nearest his heart. They must now be trampled under his feet. Right now, for this episode, we're going to turn to the second service that every Christian is to be engaged in. Are you ready? This one is described like this. Secondly, the Christian is to walk singularly, not after the world's guise. I was going to break it into two parts. Let me just read that correctly. Secondly, the Christian is to walk singularly, not after the world's guise. We are not to walk, we are to walk singularly, not after the world's guise. Now, the word guise here, let me go back to it here. The word guise here is an external form, appearance, or manner of presentation, typically concealing the true nature of something. He visited in the guise of an inspector, selling under the guise of market research, a telemarketer selling under the guise of market research. All right, so that means as a Christian, you are to walk singularly, not after the world's appearance or the world's direction, or you're not to walk after the form of the world, after the appearance of the world. You're not to walk in that direction. You're not to walk like that. You're not to walk in that manner. You're to singularly walk in a different way, a singular focus to walk opposite of the world. They have here Romans chapter 12, verse 2, which I'm sure you are very aware of. Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Romans 12, 2, we read these words, Romans 12, 2. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Now, let's put this together. So as a Christian, you need to be strong in the Lord. You need the power of his might. You need to have courage. And this gets put to the test in these areas where every Christian must be involved in. And number one is fighting an irreconcilable war with your bosom sins, those sins that lay near and dear to your heart. That's where you have to fight. You need the strength and courage to fight those bosom sins. Secondly, you are to engage, and you are to then spend your life walking singularly, not after the world's guise, after the world's appearance. So first, you're fighting the bosom sin that lies within you, and second, you're basically fighting the course of this world. You're standing against it. You're not walking in accordance with it. You're not walking in agreement with it. You're not walking under the appearance of it. You are walking completely different. In other words, you're going to walk in a way that you're going to stand out. Like everyone's going to realize, wait, there's something completely different. I'll use this. This is not maybe the best illustration, but it'll work. All right, maybe it'll work. I went to school not far from in high school, not far from where I'm currently sitting. I'm sitting here in the church in Ovalo, Texas, and about, a mile and a half, 2 miles down the road is the very small town of Tuscola, Texas. And within Tuscola, Texas is the high school, Jim Ned High School. Jim Ned High School. In fact, I think Jim Ned just won the state championship for football here in the state of Texas. I believe we did this year. I don't know. I don't really keep up too much with that. But okay. But there's Jim Ned High School, a high school in the middle of nowhere, West Texas. Now, when I did not walk after the guys, after the course, after the appearance of anything that had anything to do with this high school. I walked into that high school. I stood out. I mean, it was like night and day. I mean, it was like I walked in there so differently than everyone else. Most of the guys at that time wore jeans and cowboy boots and cowboy hats. And it was like, the middle of West Texas. And I came walking in there wearing penny loafers with a spiked haircut. I mean, I did not fit in. My dress was different. The music I listened to was different. My thinking was different. I did not fit in. And and as a result, I drew the attention of people who did not like the way I dressed, did not like the way I did anything, because I didn't go along with them. I marched to a different beat. I marched to a different, focus. And as a result, I ended up, the center of attention. When I say center of attention, basically bullying and all kinds of horrible things that took place. I'm not going to go through it all. But the point is I walked in that school on the very first day, and there was no question, wait a minute, he's out of place. And I didn't try to fit in because I didn't agree with that. I remember being called into the school counselor's office, basically saying, look, you need to do more to try to fit in, because if you don't, you're going to experience all kinds of bullying and all of this, and we can't guarantee your safety. And I'm like, well, you know what? It's pretty pathetic that you're telling me that I must conform to what everyone else does simply for my own safety. That was the school's great, hey, if you don't conform, you're going to suffer. And I was like, I'm not going to conform simply because I don't want to suffer. I'm going to be me. And if the rest of the people don't like who I am and what I am, well, then I don't care. I'm not going to compromise. I'm not going to change. I'm not going to go along with the crowd. The crowd can either go along with me or they can just let me be and leave me alone. It's that simple. And so as a result, 4 years of just, I won't go through all the stories. Now, there were periods things got better, yes, but I wasn't going to go along with what they told me to go along with. I just wasn't going to play their little games. And it's ridiculous. Well, in a sense, that's the way it is to be a Christian. We are to singularly not walk after the guys of this world. We are to stand out. Now, we should stand out. Now, listen, this is very important. Sometimes as Christians, we try to stand out in the most superficial way, right? We're going to try to stand out by, just the way we dress. We look for the most superficial ways to stand out. I think we should try to stand out. Some of those superficial ways may be present, but I think we should also try to stand out in ways that are much deeper and real. By that we have a very different mindset. We're to love our enemy. That'll make you stand out. We turn the other cheek. We resist not evil. There's got to be, sometimes we just think that the only way we can stand out is by, at any opportunity, letting the world know we think that what you're doing is evil and wrong and sinful. And we don't do those things. Sometimes I think sometimes as Christians, we think that's the only way to not walk after the way of the world, is to do it in the most shallow, superficial way and almost do everything in our power to let the world know. We don't have to let the world know that we're not walking after their way. If we simply try to live accordingly to the scriptures and do so in a meaningful and a deep way. All right. So in other words, there's got to be a balanced approach in this, but we'll talk about that more in a second. But I at least want us to understand what's being That's why you're going to need strength. That's why you're going to need the power of God, because you're going to walk against the course of this world, which is going to make you stand out. And it's going to draw the attention of the world. And it's not always going to be positive. Let's see how William Gurnall handles this. So secondly, the second thing we must do as Christians is to walk singularly, not after the world's guise. We are commanded not to be conformed to this world. That is, not to accommodate ourselves to the corrupt customs of the world. We do not accommodate ourselves to the corrupt customs of the world. The Christian must not be of such a complying nature. We should not be of such a complying nature. We don't comply. We don't accommodate. We don't do that. Now, again, this is one of those situations where you have to really think these things through, and we need biblical balance here, all right? It doesn't mean that you go out there just to, in a sense, try to start a fight. We're going to stand out just because we're trying to live out the Christian life in a meaningful way. All right. He says, but we do not have such a complying nature to cut the coat of his profession according to the fashion of the times. Right? In other words, we don't change our spiritual perspective simply to go along with the fashion of the times. For me, in high school, it would be like, I don't go out and buy some Wrangler jeans, some cowboy boots, and some boots and a cowboy hat simply to go with the fashion of the school. I'm not going to accommodate it. I'm not going to go along with it. I'm not going to play that game, because it wouldn't be who I really was. It wouldn't be me. I would have to be doing what they wanted me to do. Well, as Christians, we don't change, in a sense, we don't change our spiritual perspective simply to go along with the fashion of the times. Now, again, let me make it very clear. Sometimes what we look for is we want to let the whole world know, the whole world now changes its view on homosexuality, so we want to be known as the church that is against homosexuality. Yes, we still speak against homosexuality, but we want them to see that there's more to us than just that. And again, love our neighbor, love our enemy, turn the other cheek. Those are things that are often forgotten as well. Integrity, honesty, speaking the truth, put away lying, not bearing false witness. There's so many aspects of the Christian life that if we don't compromise those, we're still going to stand out. But we always tend to look for that one thing. Hey, homosexuality. Well, yeah, I don't have a problem with homosexuality. I don't struggle with homosexuality. So yeah, I want to be known as the person who stands against that. Well, that may be easy to pull off. Demonstrate the holistic view of what a Christian is. There's more to us than that. Let them see every aspect of what a Christian is. They still may hate you. You're still going to stand out. You're still not going to fit in, but at least they'll have a better understanding of what we try to do. I think sometimes we do this in a very shallow way. But we don't simply modify our spirituality to fit in with the fashion of the times. Or, as he says, the humor of the company he falls into. We don't, if we're among a certain group of people, we don't change simply to fit in with that group of people. We don't change. There should be a consistency, a singularity in our walk, a singularity in our focus, a singularity in who we are. He says, we're not like the courier who, being asked how he could keep his preferment in such changing times. Someone's like, hey, how do you, in a sense, stay in the good graces of people in such changing times? Which one, while he had a prince for popery, another, while against popery, he answered this way. So basically, he's like, when times keep changing so dramatically, how do you basically stay in good favor? And he says this. He was not a stubborn oak, but a bending osier. And that's basically a willow tree. He's like, hey, I'm not a stubborn oak. I'm a bending willow tree. I'll go with the wind. I'll bend with the wind. I'm not a stubborn oak that just stands against the wind. If the wind wants me to go to the left, I go to the left. The wind wants me to go to the right. He's like, that's how I stay in the good graces of everyone. I bend. I move with the changes of the times. No, Christians, we don't do that. All right. He goes, I'm basically a bending kind of tree, like a willow tree, osier there. That's basically what it is. He goes, that could yield to the wind. No, we don't do that. No. And Gernal says this, no, the Christian must stand fixed to his principles and not change his habit, but freely show what countryman he is by his holy constancy in the truth. Right? So that's what we must show, what countrymen we are by our constancy in the truth. See, this is another way. We don't just show the world that, hey, we have a singular focus because of these maybe shallow things. We show that we constantly walk in the truth. We care about the truth. We speak the truth. We put away lies. We put away false information. We put away conspiracy theories. And we stay committed to the truth. See, that would be another way of demonstrating that, where a lot of Christians failed in this area. Okay, he goes, now that an odium, what an odium, what snares. Now, the idea of odium here, this word odium is the idea general or widespread hatred or disgust directed towards someone. So we could read this way. Now, what hatred, what snares, what dangers does the singularity expose the Christian to? Now, we are called to walk in a singular way, singularity, against the world's direction, the world's fashion, the world's ideals, the world's philosophies. We are to be singularly focused, not to walk according to that. But when we do that, we need to understand, I'll use these words, what hatred and what snares and what dangers will this singularity expose you to as a Christian. You got to be prepared for this. It's going to bring about danger. It is as certain that it will bring about certain dangers. It is certain that it will bring about certain dangers, just like it will be walking into a high school and you go against everything the school does. You go against it. And at times as a teenager, I was ridiculous at times in the things. I'll give you an example. All right, I'll give you an example. I decided, even though I was pretty good at football, I mean, at some point I started realizing, as small as I am, I wasn't going to be able to go far in football. Yes, maybe I was faster than everyone. Yeah, maybe I could catch the ball no matter where it was thrown. But, I was, 95 pounds. Okay. And so, yeah, when they allowed me as a freshman to play with the varsity instead of junior varsity, and the first time I ran across the middle of the field and went up to catch a football and I got hit, I felt like that my body had exploded in 1,000 pieces and I was dead. But so at some point, and for a lot of different reasons, I decided, you know what, I'm not going to play football. I'm just going to quit. I'm I'm out. Peace out. Which then only created more animosity against me, because people were expecting me to be able to do good things for the football team. And so people were really mad that I quit. But I decided to quit. And I decided to quit and went on and did my own thing, right? Because again, I didn't really care what people thought. I didn't care about peer pressure. To me, peer pressure was simply an opportunity for me to stand against that. Like if the pressure was you do A, then that to me told me exactly what to do. I was going to do B. All right. So I quit. And then in high school, so I quit as a freshman, and I kind of look at the high school landscape, kind of I'm kind of looking at the culture of high school, the kind of the climate of what high school is all about. And I realized that there's this weird thing that, hey, we have school spirit. Yes, we do. And you're supposed to go, yay, yay, our school good, that school bad. We're going to beat you. And I kind of looked at him like, what is this nonsense? Like, we're in high school. Nothing we do here even matters. All we're here is to get a piece of paper so that we can go get a job. Nobody is going to care 3 seconds after I walk out of that door of high school, nobody's going to care what you did in high school, what you accomplished in high school. Nobody cares about your glory days in high school. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to care, and you shouldn't care. So I didn't understand the whole thing. So I think it was homecoming, and our school was going to play Winters, which is where I'm sitting. If I pull out of the parking lot and take a right, I'll be at the school I went to, Jim Ned, and like I said, like about 1.5 miles, 2 miles down the road. If I turn left and go, I think it's about 20 miles, I'll run into the small town of Winters, Texas. And we were going to be playing Winters, Texas for our homecoming game, right? And it was like, ooh, this all big deal. And I was like, who really cares? Like, why does this even matter, right? So I had a plan to cause as much trouble as I could possibly cause. All right. So number one, what I did is I stole the I think it was like the city limit sign from our town, from Tuscola, and I took it to Winters and put it somewhere on the school. And then I started the rumor that they had stole our city limit sign, right? That they had stole our city limit sign. And so I started trying to create this fight between the people in our school and their school. And I stole their city limit sign and put it here. And I started rumors there. So I wanted to create this animosity that there was like this fight going on. And they were stealing our city limit signs. Who cares? They stole your city limit sign. But in high school, I guess this matters because I was trying to spark this fire of rivalry because I kept hearing about it. And I thought it was the most foolish thing. I'm like, I'm going to try to increase this, right? I'm going to try to make it more than it really is. And then me and my brother came up with this idea. The bonfire was set. I don't know when the bonfire was supposed to occur. I don't remember when it was. But me and my brother decided that, I don't even remember what time it was. Maybe it was midnight. We snuck to our school. And the night before the bonfire was supposed to occur, we started the bonfire. We set it on fire. And of course, everyone viewed that the people from the other school came and sparked the fire. So this created this like huge rivalry. There was threats of fights, and we did it. Now, let me make it very clear. Yes, I was going against the climate of the school. Right. The school told me I'm supposed to go for my school, and I'm supposed to be all team spirit, and you're supposed to fight the other school. To me, the foolishness, I saw the whole thing as stupid. So I went above and beyond to create even more problems. I went above and beyond to go against the peer pressure simply to do so. Now, yeah, that put me even in more danger. If people would have found out, I could have even probably would have received even more physical assaults that I had already experienced in high school. But that is just going out of your way to spark a fight. That's just going out of your way to create animosity. That's going out of your way to create hostility. We are going to face dangers because we stand out, but that doesn't mean we have to go and do things and such. I mean, again, that to me, what I was doing there by trying to spark this hostility between the two schools and setting the bonfire off, at midnight while everyone was home in bed, and they had everyone was all upset the next day at school, and I just walked around just laughing to myself of their absolute complete foolishness that I was easily to manipulate them. I kind of felt a little sense of satisfaction for the foolishness of what I was watching, but that really wasn't me taking a stand against peer pressure. That was me just going out of my way to create trouble. Does that make sense? In other words, there's a time where we do stand in a singular way. We do not follow the trends of the world, but sometimes you can just go out of your way to just try to make people mad. So then you can feel like you're persecuted and everyone's against you. See, if people would have found out what I did and I would have gotten beaten up, I would have been patting myself on the back. See, they just hate me because I'm not one of them. Now I would have been doing everything in my power to ask for it. Does that make sense? Now there were other situations where, it clearly demonstrated that if I didn't go along with them, then I was going to be in trouble. The first day we walked into high school, they were hazing all of the new freshmen. You had to do things like get on your hands and knees and put your nose on a penny and push it across the floor. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing anything. Anything you tell me to do, I'm not going to do. I'm not following one of these rules, one of these traditions. I'm not doing one thing because this is ridiculous. This is stupid. I'm in school because I'm supposed to be here. I'm here to make the grades so I can get that piece of paper, and I could care less about anything that goes on in this place because I'm not going to remember anything that happens in this place. All right. So I'm going to move on with my life. So that makes sense. I was standing for the right thing. So I guess what I want to try to show you is that I could go through 4 years of stories, and some of those stories will show you that I was doing the right thing. I was not going to give in to peer pressure. I was not going to follow the crowd. I was going to do my own thing. And then there were other times that I did things in the name of not following the traditions and the attitudes and the flow of the culture in that school. And there were times I did it for the right reason. There's times that in the name of doing it for that reason, I was actually just causing trouble to cause trouble. And so there was a mixture of right motives and wrong motives. And sometimes I think as Christians, we always have to ask ourselves, so why am I doing this? Why am I going to say this? Why am I going to speak out against this? Why am I speaking out that way? Is it simply because I'm trying to be godly, or I'm just trying to make a point to make a point? We have to constantly think that. And the reason we have to be so careful in thinking this kind of comes to that principle as being as wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove, is because just standing out is already going to put us in danger. We're already going to face hatred and danger. And we need to just realize there's already going to be inherent problems coming our way. We don't want to make them worse because of a wrong way of handling ourselves. We have no problem making it worse in a godly way of handling ourselves, but not in a wrong way. All right. Just keep this in mind. All right. Now let's go back to this. My Kindle turned off because I had all of those things to say. Here we go. All right. Well, let's go through this. All right. So we're going to face hatred. There's going to be snares. There's going to be possible traps. And there's going to be dangers. And I think one of those snares is that we end up acting in an incorrect way, convincing ourselves we're fighting the spiritual war. All right, let's continue here. All right, he goes, here are some of them. Some people will hoot, that's their word, hoot and mock us as one in a Spanish fashion would be laughed at in your streets. So in other words, hey, just as someone who would stand out, who's completely from a different background, we're going to be laughed at. We're going to be mocked. All right. Laughed at, mocked. All right. Big deal. Whatever. Okay. Indeed, the world counts the Christian for his singularity of life, the only fool, which I have thought gave the first occasion to that nickname whereby men commonly express a silly man or a fool. That we're basically going to be looked at as a fool. We're going to be mocked. We're going to be laughed at. All right. Such a one, say they, is a mere Abraham. That is, in the world's account, a fool. But why an Abraham? Because Abraham did that which carnal reason, the world's idol, laughs at mere folly. He left a present estate in his father's house to go he knew not whither, to receive an inheritance he knew not when, and truly such fools all the saints are branded for by the wise world. All right? So we're all going to be viewed as being a fool. We're going to be mocked. We're going to be laughed because we are following Scripture. We're doing something to try to glorify a God in whom we do not see, with the hope of getting to a heaven that we have not been to. We've never actually been there. We are doing a lot of things by faith and trust, and the world looks at that as foolish and stupid. They go on to say this, you know the man and his communication, said Jehu to his companions, asking what that mad fellow came for, who was no other than a prophet. Now this requires courage to despise the shame which the Christian must expect to meet for his singularity. So you're going to need courage to be able to bear this shame and this mocking. Now, I think for many cases, I don't know. I don't know how much mocking and shame bothers Christians. I don't know. You could argue, and you can tell me if you agree with this, that many of the changes the modern church has made to try to be more pleasing to the world, more accessible and relevant to the world, is some of that simply because we don't want to be mocked by the world? Or are we simply convincing ourselves that we're doing it for the right reason, but the real reason is we want the approval of the world? Maybe. Only you know how that will affect you. How do you handle it? Like, are you one of those people who don't want to stand out? You don't want to stand out. You don't want to be mocked. Now, we all tell ourselves, I mean, look, and you go to every high school, young people will always be the ones saying, I don't go along with the crowd. I do my own thing. They all claim that while they look like everyone else, talk like everyone else, do what everyone else does, and think like everyone else does. But they claim that it's my individuality. It's my individuality that just happens to look like everyone else, talk like everyone else, think like everyone else. And then when you get them alone and private, right, where they don't have that fear, and if they trust you, then sometimes they start telling you what they really like, what they would really prefer to do. And you just look at them like, why are you living as a slave? Break free. Who cares what people think? But they all claim. See, sometimes as Christians, I think we claim that we don't care what the world thinks. And then I think we do things that kind of demonstrate that we do, right? Shame is that which proud nature most disdains. So pride in us, we absolutely hate and despise shame. We don't want to be shamed, made fun of because of our pride. I think there's something to that. When we don't like that mockery, or we don't like that shame, and we don't look down upon, is it simply because of our pride? Well, as Christians, we need to stand against pride. To avoid which many. So in other words, we will avoid this shame. We will avoid this mockery, and by not confessing Christ openly. We will not want to confess Christ openly because we're afraid of what people will say and what people will think. Many lose heaven because they are ashamed to go in a fool's coat. Again, as some will mock, so others will persecute to death, merely for this nonconformity in the Christian principles and practices to them. So it can go from mockery, it can go to shame, it can go to persecution. This was the trap laid for the three children. They must dance after Nebuchadnezzar's pipe or burn. This was the plot laid to ensnare Daniel, who walked so unblameably that his very enemies gave him this testimony that he had no fault but his singularity in his religion. It is a great honor to a Christian, yea, to religion itself, when all their enemies can say is they are precise and will not do as we do. Now, in such a case as this, when the Christian must turn or burn, leave praying or become a prey to the cruel teeth of bloody men, how many political retreats and self-perceiving distinctions would a cowardly, unresolved heart invent? The Christian that hath so great opposition had need be well locked into the saddle of his profession, or else he will soon be dismounted. All right. So in other words, we have to be willing to take a stand. Now, again, taking a stand doesn't mean being foolish. And again, it doesn't mean just putting on a fake show. It doesn't just mean like, whoa, look how godly we are. Remember, the first thing we have to focus on is our bosom sins. Remember, that's the first thing. I think here's the thing. Let me try to do this as a word of warning, because I'm trying to offer a balanced view here, right? Because as a young Christian, when I went through this book, I think in many cases I took an imbalanced view maybe on this point. Let me think of it this. Let me try to think of it, or try to point this out. If you look at really what the book, The Christian in Complete Armor, is focusing on so far, The areas where we are to engage in, if you really think about it, it's about us. It's not about them. What do I mean by that? Well, the first area is you fighting a war against your bosom sins. That's focusing on your sins. And then secondly, it's a singular focus in you, not to walk after the course of the world. It's, in other words, you're not preoccupied with the world and what they're doing and how you can stand against them and how you can go tell them how different you are. It's just you saying, I've got a singular focus here. My singular focus is to follow Christ. It's to follow the scriptures. It's not a preoccupation with them. I'll go back to my high school example because it works. There were times that clearly I was so preoccupied with what everyone else was doing, and that literally was dictating the course I took. In other words, instead of just focusing on me and what I wanted and just doing my thing, in many cases I was looking at what they were doing and going, okay, that's what they do, that's how they think, I'm going to do the opposite. So in a sense, they were still controlling me. I was doing it about them, for them, to be against them. Our focus is not on, look at the world, what are they doing? Let's do everything we can to be, to do the opposite of them. We are just preoccupied with a different course of life. We are preoccupied with conforming ourselves to the Son of God. We are preoccupied with conforming ourselves to the Word of God. We're not just looking at the world going, oh, look what they're talking about today. Let me go speak up to tell everyone how different I am. Here's another example. I've had people in my church at different times who they always wanted to be the one to speak up to try to show you how different they were, how they were not conformed to the world, how godly they were. And they would do this and just sometimes it just came across so fraudulent and fake. It really came across that way. I would be preaching and maybe I decided to use an example from a movie or a TV show or from a sporting event, from something going on in the world. And without fail, they would speak up, like in the middle of the sermon, to say, I don't know what you're talking about. What movie is that? Wait, what's the Super Bowl? Like something just ridiculous, like something big happening in the news. I don't know what are you talking about? And it's like, okay, really? So you got to and it's almost like they wanted the whole church to know that they didn't see that movie. They don't know that television show. They don't know that song. They don't know what the Super Bowl is. And sometimes it's just like, what's your point in telling me that? Is your point because you don't understand my illustration? Or is your point is to let the whole world, the whole church know, and everyone listening on the internet that you're not worldly like the rest of us? See, that's not what this is referring to. This is that we singularly, in a singular way, we do not follow the course of the world. But the focus is on conforming ourselves to God. The focus is on Scripture. The focus is not, I've got to let the world know that I'm different than them. When I walk into work and they're talking about a TV show, I got to let them know, we don't watch TV in our family. We don't watch those kinds of movies. We don't. Now, see, that will get the attention of the world, and it may turn people against you, but it's almost like you're just trying to do that just to provoke. You don't have to let them know that you don't watch it. You don't have to even engage in that conversation. You can just go on with your day. Does that make sense? Like, there's a time to speak up when we're speaking about Christ, but there's other times you just don't have to. They're going to know that you don't follow the course of their way, but you want to show it, and not just those. It's really, put it this way, it's really easy to be at work and show everyone that you're different than them because you don't watch the same movies, you don't watch the same TV shows, and you don't listen to the same music. Oh, that's easy to make them know how different you are. Show them how different you are by the fact that you don't gossip about people at work. You don't slander people at work. You try to demonstrate love to even people at work who hate you. You try to show your godliness in the way you act and the quality of work you do, that you show up on time, you do a good day's work, you do the job the best of your ability because you're doing it in order to glorify God. You demonstrate your integrity, your work ethic, your love for other people, that you're trustworthy, you don't spread rumors and lies about people. Demonstrate that, but sometimes it's Christians at work only want to show their Christianity to let everyone know that, hey, I don't engage in that ungodly behavior that the rest of you do. There's got to be a positive way. Being conformed to the image of Christ, being conformed to the Word of God, is more than just what we don't do. It's also about what we do, and that demonstrates this difference. I think we can just be so preoccupied here on trying to show the world. I think the focus here is on my bosom sins. Me, as a Christian, not singularly, not walking after the course of this world, not after its fashion, but I'm preoccupied with something else. Putting off the old, but putting on the new. All right? And I think that's a good way to balance that out. All right, there we go. That concludes our discussion of that part. We didn't make it very far. That point of the Christian in complete armor from chapter 1. You can give me your thoughts on this entire topic at newsif@yahoo.com. Newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com. I'm sorry, I was looking here at the next point. The third thing we'll look at, the third thing as a Christian we're to engage in, the Christian must keep on his way to heaven in the midst of all the scandals that are cast upon the way of God by the apostasy and foul falls of false professors. All right. So the third thing is a Christian, we must keep our way on heaven no matter what is happening around us, what's happening in the church, outside of the church. This one will be an interesting discussion as well. All right. So let's go back. What are the first two things William Gurnall says we need strength and courage to do? The first one is, let me go all the way back, we must proclaim and prosecute an irreconcilable war against the bosom sins. Number two, I'll get to it, we as Christians must walk singularly, not after the world's guise or after the world's fashion or after the world's ways. There you have it. All right, I look forward to your feedback. newsif@yahoo.com. newsif@yahoo.com. If you have any questions or thoughts, let me know. Everyone have a great day. God bless.